Hello, welcome back to the studio. Well, a blank canvas, which means I haven't painted it yet. Or does it? That's right, I've already done the painting. But don't tell that buffoon, he doesn't know anything. This is all about time travel. I'm going back to the year 2000 or something, when I started off doing demonstrations for you lovely people. So I'm painting against the clock. Let's see how I get on. Oh, and I'm going to paint this lovely Bob Ross classic for you, Towering Peaks. And I've got my canvas already coated with some liquid whites. It's nice and slick and ready to go. And I got my palette laid out for you. And just as Bob would do, I'll run all the colours along the bottom of the screen. So let's get painting. So here's my palette. I'll add some more colours later on. My first colour is going to be phthalo blue. And I've taken that old 1-inch brush that I started with, and I've given my canvas a thin coat. Now, take a small amount, and don't forget, give that a good old tap. We want to drive the paint into the bristles, but we want to break up any big chunks. And I'm going to start right up here at the corner of my canvas with some little crisscrosses. By starting in the corners, if I've got too much blue on my brush, it means I can sort of limit the damage to one corner. And just as Bob would do, we start off with some little crisscrosses. I need a little more blue. So always start back in those corners. Now this is a step back in time, as I mentioned, because I haven't done a one-off demonstration like this for many years. So it'll be fun to see if I can still do one of Bob's classics in around the 28-minute mark. So I'm going to be painting and talking, and if the phone rings or dogs bark, ambulances pass by, yeah, you'll hear it all. The one thing I wanted to do is to leave lots of holes. I need to leave a big gap for a nice mountain, so I'm already planning. Even at this stage, I'm thinking about where things are going to go in my painting. Now, straight back into my phthalo blue. See, my red's making a break for it. I'll catch that in a second. And I'm going to put a little sailor green on my brush. Just a touch, it's super strong. It's time for the water. Edge to center. I just want a little hint of that nice green colour. Pull it in and leave a little center section here where you may have a sheen of light across the water. This painting doesn't have a lot of water showing in it. There's a lot more foliage around the edge, but it's fun to have a little bit of water showing in your painting. So that's it, a nice quick background sky, a little shimmer of light. Check that that's nice and level. You can use your brush to measure with. I think that's about right. And finish off. A few nice strokes. There, I think that's about right. I just swung you around slightly just so you get a better shot of this. I'm going to go straight into some titanium white with a fresh, clean, dry 1-inch brush. Pick up a little titanium white on the tip of the brush. Add the merest amount of bright red to it. Just a touch. There we go. Just the faintest hint of pink on my brush. I'm going to do some nice little swirly clouds. And this is where these kind of holes really kind of help you, because it means you can kind of get your brush kind of in there and make some nice little swirls. The kind of the holes, they really help you. It means you're not having to fight over a lot of blue. It means your little clouds will really stand out. They really pop. So keep adding little bits of white to your brush. You want to be nice, big, fluffy clouds. And you can do them circular, circle to the left or circle to the right. It doesn't matter which way round you want to circle. Bob would say, your world, put as many or as few clouds as you want. A nice big mountain peak right in here. So I'm going to got a little bit more room over here for some more clouds. Again, I'm going to use that little patch of light as a guide. Now, of course, Bob would paint this on 1824 canvas, a really massive canvas. And I'm painting this on a 1620, which is a little more in keeping with the size of my camera. I can fit this in on the screen a little more easily. You can get a bit better view of it all. If you do a little bit and then you think, oh, maybe I want to make that stand out a little more, see that? You can just come back in and just add a little burst of bright colour. And this is what you want to be looking at on your own paintings. When you're painting away, you stand back and think, oh, I really like that, but I want it to stand out a little more. By not overworking things, you can come back in, there's a little bit of shadow there. I can just pop in a little bit of brightness. And suddenly we can move a cloud. As Bob would say, there's not many things in life you can do with that much power. When you pick up a brush, you can. Now, for my mountain, I want a classic Bob Ross mix. It's going to be Prussian blue, Van Dyke brown, some alizarin crimson, maybe a little black. Those four colours form the basis of nearly all the Bob Ross mountains you'll see him do on the Joy of Painting programme. Spread it down. Pick up a little roll of paint. Just a little roll to start with. Now, this mountain peak lives a little further to the right than centre, and the main peak is right at the back. Now, I got a big cloud over here and I want to work just beside it. I want to put a little mark there, one there, maybe a little one further down. I'm going to have another peak over in here. Now, firm pressure, back of the knife. Really press and push into the canvas. The idea is we want to stain the canvas with colour. I think that's a challenge for some folk. You want to put on too much paint at this stage. Now, I got a lot of white here from that cloud that could get me into trouble. I'm going to just take that off. Touch it to a paper towel. Now you see, my colour really wants to stain. Again, I just keep on adding little rolls of paint, pressing it down. I hope you can hear that on the microphone. I'm really pressing in hard. The idea is I want the top of my peak to be as dark, as stained as possible. I don't want that to be too pale. I keep on pressing paint in and maybe I'll reshape things a little bit. This looks a bit too kind of pointed for my liking, so maybe I'll make some little changes here. There. And scrape out all that surplus paint. Get tough with it. Get tough. I've already scraped off a lot of paint. So what I want to do really is kind of mist out the base a little bit. I want to keep this as dark as possible and let it quickly fade to a light grey tone, maybe even coming slightly forward, so it looks like this part of my painting is kind of projecting forwards from the canvas. Already I'm trying to get a nice sort of 3D effect going. There we go. Give this a light flick. Just to knock off any of those little surplus amounts of paint. And can you see the shape of a mountain already appearing here? Press that paint down and roll it down nice and flat. Pick up a little roll of paint. Okay. There, one nice stroke. Steep and flat. There we go. You want to get all these kind of little breaks in the paint. That was kind of a nice stroke. Let's add a little more. One of the things you got to get used to using is a little bit of speed. Just a little touch of speed. If you go too slow, it's actually hard to do. I think I might just bring in a little more paint. I'm going to kind of come in. There's this kind of little V shape here. That's where I put my knife. There. Break again. So I want to think about how this mountain's going to come down to the left. So we're going a little to the left with our paint. It's called a J turn. Like a letter J. You can come off that, break your paint this side again. I put out a little more white, take that to one side. I'm going to add in a touch of phthalo blue, and well, maybe even a little phthalo green will creep in there. Now, this is a challenge for you because you've got to make sure this color is significantly different to the highlight. If I go with a very pale blue color against this white snow, they might look a little similar and you won't have that nice differential of shadow here. So again, this is a little common mistake I sometimes used to make on my own paintings. So I always make sure I marble this color. You can get a little base color in there to grey it down a little. Take a little roll of paint, just a small roll of paint. And this is a little trick I saw Bob do once. He would bump the highlight color out of the way. He would come up and he would just kind of nudge it. And don't forget, follow the line of your mountain. Little bump, a little bump, and follow the shape of that little G. So this is a small roll of paint we're working with here. So the break isn't quite as easy this side. Prefer the breaking to the right than to the left. I'll switch to the small blade, and just to try and get a little sense of snowy. Looks like the snow kind of crept over the edge of that mountain peak. Look at that. See what happened there? I just introduced a slightly different grey tone. A little bit blue-grey. Put that out of the way. I moved that to the back. And I brought this peak forwards. And it's just playing with colours. All the time just playing with your colours. A little bit of shadow colour in here. Just pop that. Bump that out of the way and drag. A kind of drag. There. And dry 1-inch brush. And here we just want to knock off some of these little speckly bits. Create a little bit of a mist. Now, stay in the line of the mountain here. Don't tap across the line. Think about how the mist would form and roll down the base of the mountain. A few little upward strokes. Bring that all together. As quick as that. A couple of towering peaks. Okay, so that was a nice run through a quick mountain there. I forgot to do anything with that one bit in the background there. Maybe I should just drop a little touch of highlight on that peak. I don't want him left down. He gets a little touch of shadow. Shall I give him some highlight? What do you think? Yeah. Let's give him a little touch of highlight. Nothing too much though. Again, I want him in the background there. Put him in there, just kind of fit him in to the back of my mountain. Now, one thing you should try and do quite often is control the shape and mess on your palette a little bit, because they can get out of shape. They can get into a real pickle here. So every once in a while you got to sort of stop and have it tidy up. I think this is probably, again, one of those sort of top tips here where if you kind of get your kit in a bit of a pickle and everything kind of gets into a bit of a mess, you kind of run out of areas to paint, even down to wiping off your palette knife, which I forgot to do, of course. But just kind of keeping everything kind of under a little bit of kind of control here pays dividends. You don't get into quite such a mess. Now, I'm going to use this for my Foothills, and I want to add a little bit of sap green to this. So just a little sap green. And that's the base colour I'm going to be using for lots of my painting now. And again, just mix it in. And here you see I'm using a white palette. Bob's palette was clear, but I like to use a white one so that you can see any subtle changes in colour. Let's add a little more sap green. You can see that needs to be changed a little more. Now, see what I did there? Rather than trying to change all of that, I took some of that and changed a little. So this is now a nice green colour. There. And this is still quite originally the dark colour. So let's get into this and make some little footy hills. Come back to my blue brush. So when I put the blue sky on with, and I also use for pulling out some of that base colour of my mountain. But it's still in good shape, and I can use this for my footy hills. So I'm going to go into some of this nice dark green colour. tap it out really well. I'm going to put a few little markers on. This tells me I don't want to go any higher than that. Maybe I don't want to go any lower than that. So again, I've got a kind of a layout here. I know where I'm working to, because again, from experience, I know that it's easy to run out of position here. As you're tapping away, you can suddenly find yourself painting over areas of your painting you didn't want to do. I went a little darker there with my colour. It's okay. Once again, there's going to be a tree here in the corner, so I'm going to be a little careful not to worry too much about painting there. And I'm just going to tap this through here. Again, just little background details. It looks like a little tree back there. Not too much paint again. Just tap these out nice. There. What I'm worrying about here is that edge. These are like little trees. You can just do some little flicks. That was a trick Bob did quite often. He would just touch and just lift up a little bit. So you kind of, with the corner of the brush, you can kind of lift up. There we are. And that brush is the brush I use for painting my clouds. So it's already got some white on it. That's sneaky, huh? Go and learn these little tricks. Save you a lot of pain and effort and hard work when you're painting away. Okay, I just want to kind of get a nice little misty layer in here. So I'll be tapping up into the green and tapping up and down. I want a hard line here. I just want to kind of create the illusion of some mist. Yeah, look at that. Upward flicks. Okay, I swung around to the side again, and I've picked up a fan brush and got into this lovely dark green colour here. This is the number 6 Bob Ross fan. I'm going to load my brush really well, especially on those edges and corners. Sometimes we end up with a big chunk of paint in the middle and nothing on the edges. I encourage you to make sure you get those edges filled with paint. Now, for my background fir trees, and this is a neat little trick. Give yourself a line to work to. Okay, let me stop you kind of sinking too low and ending up sort of running out of room. And I'm going to have my background fir trees kind of sinking away at the sides a little more. It kind of draws your eye to the back of the painting. So there we go, some little layout lines. Now watch. Brush handle up nice and tall, nice and straight, and just tap. If you go below that line, don't worry. There'll be reflections. I'm just looking for some nice little fir trees here. You see, having a lot of paint on the corners of your fan brush give you this lovely strength of colour. Once again, I'm trying to save a little of the misty area in the background, the shape of the fir tree, and a little bit for reflection. These are further away, they want to be a little bit smaller. Firm pressure here, guys. Think about grabbing probably the last or half inch of these little trees. Really push in hard. Press, pull straight down. If you leave a little gap here and there, that's okay. And here at the sides, I'm going to pull a little deeper for the taller trees. There we go. What would Bob do next? That's right. You pull across, create a little reflection. Always edge to center. Because if you go back, you create a little mark that's really hard to get rid of. A little dirty mark will always be there. So, edge to center. And for my waterline, I got some titanium white paint there. It's a little bit grubby. I rub my knife in the paint. Just get a little roll. And Bob would use liquid white for this, and I certainly used to use that in the past, but I found that sometimes, certainly when I was painting outdoors, if it was very warm, liquid white would become almost like water and almost impossible to use. So I got used to using titanium white. Look at that, I made a bit of a smudge there, didn't I? Let's fix that. See, I put my knife over and just give it a rub. Just remember, keep these water lines nice and level. Okay, still flat water, nice level. I straightened up my camera. I reset the focus to this side of the canvas because I'm going to put some little fir trees on here now. Do you remember when I was painting this mountain a few minutes ago? I said don't put any heavy paint here. Don't put any heavy paint over there because you're going to put fir trees here. So that's what we have to do next. We've got to paint some little fir trees. Again, I'm going to use my fan brush. Let's use some of that nice dark green colour. Bob had 3 trees on his. I think I probably got room for 3. And what I want to do is drop in the line of the biggest tree first. I want to know where it starts and where it finishes. Because if you don't know where the start and stop is, then they tend to run off the top of the canvas. Once you've got that, you know that you've got room maybe for another little tree there. And we'll see if we've got one at the side maybe as well. Turn your brush over, handle down. And I'm using just the point of my brush to create, looks like a little kind of umbrella shape. And this is the way I was shown to paint Bob Ross fir trees. Just a stack of umbrellas. And you see every time I go across the center, I press down. I don't let the brush skid. I press down and create a new umbrella shape. Now, if you find this difficult, practice in the center. Just fill up the middle, make a whole stack of little umbrellas. As quick as that, you can kind of just make a little stack of them, and then you can come back and then give them some little arms. See, I'm just going to grow my tree a little wider. Okay. As I want a bigger arm, I just press a little harder. Just bend those bristles. And this does 2 things. It obviously makes a nice dark outline, but it also textures the canvas. Otherwise this would be really slick and tricky to paint on. Now, what about this kind of raggedy edge here? Well, not a fan of raggedy edges. So I'm going to just squeeze on maybe another little tree. But he has an important job. See, he frames the edge of my painting. He gets rid of that line that I don't want to see. And he brings these 2 paintings, these 2 trees forwards in the painting, you see. So he has a really good job there, that little tree on the end there. A little sap green to it. If you really want to make it pop, add just the tiniest bit, just the smallest amount of phthalo green. But don't overdo it now. You put too much phthalo green into there and you'll have a fluorescent tree. Now then, I'm just going to load the edge of my brush here, give it a little push, and load the edge of my brush with paint. Soft, rich highlight colour. Now we can see the highlights are falling on the right side of this mountain. So the brightest side of my trees are going to be on the right. Just touch. Mainly the right. A little bit in the center. Nothing to the left. Maybe this tree's a little bit brighter. Maybe I'll make this a little bit brighter, a little bit more highlight to it. Yeah, there you go. But save that dark. Save that dark. And there's a temptation to want to come back and fool with these a little bit too much. I can tell you that, well, you get yourself into a pickle if you do. But just want to add a little suggestion here. See, there's hardly any colour on my brush, hardly anything there at all. But by just gentle tapping, you know, you can just kind of tapping. You can get kind of almost kind of a shadow colour in there. I got some dark sienna, some Van Dyke brown here. Put that down there. You get a little grubby more white colour there. Nothing too bright. Grubby white colour, a bit more blue in it. There we go. Nice marble mix. A little roll of paint, tiny. See, I use the small blade of my knife here sometimes just to reach back in there and drop in a centre line. Bob would always run the knife up the centre of the tree, kind of put the little point on top, and he would always say it was the TV aerial, so they could all tune into the show. So I swung you back over that way again because I'm going to do these trees and bushes. And I've gone back to my old brush, and you always know I'm using an old brush because it's got the little orange tip on it. It tells you it's already had a good lot of use and it's pretty well worn. But I'm going to drag this brush through the dark colour rounded side. And when I say the rounded side, I'm talking about this side. See, it's got a smooth side to it, rounded. That side's crimped. That's how they make them. I'm going to pull it through the paint, dark paint, one direction. Rounded side first. See what I'm doing? I'm kind of bending the brush back. I'm opening the brush up. Okay. Now, rounded side to the top. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create some nice trees and bushes. Now, if I just do that, you see what I'm doing? I'm just going to touch, let the brush pop forwards and then let it kind of come back to the center. Open and back. Open and then back. So it kind of creates this nice little sort of explosion. And as it does that, it kind of creates this lovely textured effect. Now, a lot of people tend to just let the brush flick. It kind of creates a grassy effect. It looks a bit more like this in the background, but no texture. And that's really hard to get a nice highlight to stick to. Now, I stopped a little short here. See, if I left that, I'd have that really kind of unfinished raw edge to my mountain. So, I'm going to make sure I go a little higher. And just like this tree, it's going to frame it up. Maybe I'll do a little planning. Way back when I started this painting, about half an hour ago, I put the liquid white on there. Do you remember I said don't put on too much? Don't overdo it. Because if you put on too much liquid white, then all of these lovely dark colours that are dry and sticky and ready for a highlight, if the liquid white gets mixed into here, then these will become kind of pale and pastel and kind of sort of soggy, and they won't take a highlight very well. Whereas you see mine are really lovely and dark and sticky, and they're ready for highlights. I pulled my cadmium yellow together and added a bit more to it, some sap green, and I've switched brushes to one of my nice brushes. And I'm going to go through this again, rounded side. See, it's got a little rounded side. Pull it through the paint, gently, gently spring the brush apart. Look at that palette. That texture is what we're looking for. Because if we have texture there, we have little points of paint standing right up off the bristles. If you could see that, it looks just like a mini mountain range in there. Again, highlight side to the top. And although I was heavy with the underpainting, now delicate. Just touch. We want the paint to touch and not the bristles. You see, I've knocked off all the little points of paint and I've picked up some dark. Neat little trick. Flick your brush on a piece of paper towel. Not hard, just flick it. Knock off the dark. Then think about painting the next limb. Leave a little dark. There's the next little limb. Think about another little limb just here. You see, I left that little dark shadow in there. Sort of the shadow side of the bushes and trees. Not everything needs bright colour. You can have some nice shadow colours in there as well. Think about saving the darks. There's another little bush. Do I put one in the corner? What do you think? Again, I'm varying my colours. Let me show my palette. See, I've been going into the sap green, into the cad yellow, into the Indian yellow, maybe into yellow ochre in a minute. I'm just kind of picking up different colours from different places on my palette. Yeah, let's add a little green bush down in there. There we go. And for my little pathway, I'm going to use some Van Dyke Brown. I've got a little black left over here, so I'm going to use that up as well. I want a good, dark, strong colour. Yeah, pick up a little roll of paint. Okay, and again, a little bit of texture. And I think about how the pathway would kind of come around the corner and the sort of scale of it. You don't want this to be too small. Just touch and drag. I'm going to just kind of get this to fit into these bushes here. Again, just drag it across. So I want it to be really small back here, and I want it to be a little bigger in the foreground here. If you remember, we did a tree trunk with some marble mix. Oh, there we go. I kept the marble mix. Dark sienna, Van Dyke Brown, a little dirty white colour there. Again, a little roll of paint, but marble mixed. Super gentle here, folks. Just touch the canvas. I like to add just a little pop of colour here. Just kind of draws your eye kind of to it. But I try and think about where the light would fall. It would come through here. These little bushes are going to cast a little bit of a shadow here, so I'll keep my pop of light to this left side a little bit more. There we go. Being a little bit mean with the liquid white means that I'm painting on a part of my canvas which is only just lightly oily, not too wet. And again, rounded side to the top. Think about where the light's coming from. Maybe think about doing this right hand corner first. Yeah. See how that pops? It really pops off the canvas. And then as you run out of paint, you start thinking about doing the shadowy side in here. And just in here, it's a kind of an edge which is a little bit raggedy. And I'll just come in here and just touch in a few little highlights, a couple of little weeds. And that's important. I think it's these little touches that we add to our painting that really give it that sort of depth and distance, and people really appreciate it when they look at your painting. They can see the time and trouble you took to make a really good job of it. So I've got a liner brush. I put just a couple of drops of linseed oil, but you can use odorless thinners for this. Your paint wants to be thin like ink, but not watery. Now then, let's add a few little sticks and twigs and we'll call them doers, wouldn't they? Little details and things in our painting. Again, this is another little detail that people love to see in your paintings. They love to see these little bit of extra work that you put in. Make your painting really stand out. I'm going to use the point of my palette knife and I'm going to just turn it sideways on and just scratch into the painting in the darker areas, maybe just in here. Few little sticks and twigs in here as well. Just kind of hold things together a little bit. Now, one little trick I like to do is to actually turn your knife edge on, just slide up through that dark paint, pick up a little colour. You can create these nice little fine grasses. Again, another little detail you can add into your painting. People wonder how you did it, but don't tell them. A little secret. Looked like a bit of a staircase there, didn't they? Okay, let's put something through there like that. And with that, I think we have a finished painting. It's a Bob Ross classic, Towering Peaks, by yours truly, Paul Ranson. I hope in around 28 minutes. What do you think, Poppycat? She just agreed. It's a winner. So there we have it. Bob Ross classic, Towering Peaks, done by yours truly in just a shade over 28 minutes. Yeah, it's just a shade. But don't move, there's some more lovely videos for you to watch. Take your time and watch them all. Happy painting, people. That was supposed to be time travel. I must get some better special effects.